All right, let's jump right in. In this explainer, we're going to unpack a really powerful idea from Thomas Troward's classic work, the Edinburgh Lectures. It's an idea that gets to the very heart of why we sometimes feel stuck. And more importantly, it gives us a clear path for how to get unstuck. So let's see what he discovered.
Have you ever had one of those problems? A challenge that just keeps coming back again and again. Maybe it's at work, in a relationship, or just a personal habit you can't seem to shake. You put in all this effort, you try to fix it, but before you know it, there it is again. It's incredibly frustrating, and according to Troward, there's a very specific reason this happens.
And here it is.
The reason those problems stick around is that we are almost always focused on the symptoms. We're looking at the effects, the outward signs of the problem. We're basically running around trying to manage the situation without ever looking at what's actually causing it in the first place.
And that brings us to the absolute core of Troward's idea, this fundamental difference between a cause and a condition. Getting this distinction is the key, really, because it represents two completely different ways of looking at your life and every challenge you face.
So, what's the real difference? Well, on one side, you've got conditions. These are the things you see and experience out in the world, your circumstances, the number in your bank account, the state of your health. Troward called these the fruit, or the effects. But on the other side, you have the causes, and these are internal. They're your beliefs, your ideals, the patterns of thought you hold in your mind. This is the root, the actual source of it all. Now, this leads to a trap that so many of us fall into, usually without even realizing it. It's called secondary causation. This is basically the belief that our goals, our happiness, our success, it all depends on things outside of us. You know the thinking, I can't start my business till the economy gets better, or I'll finally be happy when this person starts acting differently. Troward said this way of thinking is the breeding ground for all our doubts and fears, because we're giving our power away to things we can't control.
This whole idea of focusing on the root instead of the fruit, it might sound kind of like a modern self-help idea, right? But it's really not. What Troward figured out over 100 years ago is actually this amazing bridge that connects timeless wisdom with what we now know about the human mind from modern science.
To really get this, let's go way back to one of the most famous analogies in all of philosophy, Plato's allegory of the cave. So the story goes, there are these prisoners who've been chained up their whole lives, facing a wall. Behind them is a fire, and people are walking by, casting shadows on the wall. For the prisoners, these flickering shadows, that's their entire reality.
And that is exactly how we so often live our lives. We react to the conditions, the shadows on our wall, as if they're the real thing. We see the bank balance, we feel fear. We look at a past mistake, and we feel doubt. We are constantly reacting to the effects, believing that they are the primary, unchangeable reality.
So this idea is ancient, right? But here's what's so powerful. The exact same principle is the bedrock of one of the most effective tools we have today, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Here's the core discovery from psychology. An external event, a condition, doesn't automatically cause our emotional response. It's our thought, our belief, our interpretation of that event that actually creates the feeling. That interpretation, that is the primary cause. It's the lens we see everything through. And that is the whole game. It's the crucial point. When you change the cause, that is your internal interpretation, the effect, the feeling, it has to change too. This is precisely what Troward was talking about when he said we need to reverse our method of thinking. And now we have decades of science to back it up.
Okay, so this all makes sense in theory, but how does it actually work? In the real world? This next part is all about making that critical shift from just constantly reacting to things to consciously creating the life you want.
Just take a look at this table. In every single area, the reactive mind looks outside. At work, it's my boss is the problem. In a relationship, it's why are they doing that? With a bad habit, it's I just need more willpower. But the creative mind, it turns inward. It looks for the root. Instead of blaming the boss, it asks, what's my ideal for growth here? Instead of fixating on the other person, it asks, what belief am I holding about this relationship? And instead of fighting a habit, it asks, what deep need is this habit actually trying to meet? See the difference?
So I want to give you something really simple you can use anytime you're feeling stuck. It's a way to put this whole idea into practice in just about a minute. Let's call it the root and fruit audit. It's just 2 quick steps. First, just identify one of those recurring challenges in your life. This is the fruit that keeps showing up. Maybe it's a specific conflict, or procrastination, or some kind of anxiety. Just take a second and bring one to mind. Now, the second step is to ask one simple but really powerful question about it. And this is the question. It's not, why is this happening to me? Or how do I fix this mess? The question is, what is the underlying belief feeding this pattern? What thought held in my own mind is the root system that keeps producing the same exact fruit over and over again?
So really, the whole practice, this entire principle, it all comes down to this one simple phrase. When you're faced with that problem, that condition, that fruit, just redirect your attention. Look at the root, because that is where your real power to create change is.
All right, let's pull all of this together. What does it actually mean to reverse your method of thinking? And what are the big takeaways?
So first, we get stuck when we're trying to fix the fruit, the external conditions, instead of getting to the root, the internal causes. Second, and this is huge, your own thought, your core belief is that primary cause. Third, we saw how this isn't just some abstract idea. It's backed up by ancient wisdom and confirmed by modern science. And finally, you now have a real tool, that root and fruit audit, to start making that powerful shift from reacting to creating.
And that, right there, is the great promise in Troward's work. It's a law, like cause and effect. You don't have to fight the conditions, you don't have to struggle against those shadows on the wall. When you find the clarity to change the primary cause, that thought in your own mind, the external conditions, sooner or later, have no choice but to follow. We're going to explore exactly how to build these new mental patterns in our next explainer. You can find that video and the full playlist for the series right down in the description. Thanks so much for watching.